หัวหน้าน้ำท่วมถนนขาดหมดแล้วที่บ้านแม่ปูล่า
In just a few short hours, northern Thailand's quiet landscapes were transformed into a nightmare. Streets vanished beneath torrents of water, turning into raging rivers. Families clung to rooftops, frantically signaling for rescue as muddy floods devoured their homes. Entire bridges snapped like twigs torn away and carried downstream by the unstoppable current. This is Uttaradit province, and tonight, it is drowning under catastrophic flash floods. Fueled by tropical Storm Bualoi and unrelenting monsoon rains, the disaster struck with terrifying speed, trapping thousands and isolating entire villages. Authorities have declared a red crisis, their highest level of emergency. And with water still rising, the danger is only escalating. But how did a region collapse so suddenly? And why are so many lives still hanging by a thread? Tonight, we take you into the heart of the chaos, as Thailand faces one of its most devastating flood emergencies in recent history. It started before dawn in Uttaradit province, northern Thailand. At first, it was just rain-heavy, relentless pounding the rooftops hour after hour. But by sunrise, that rain had turned lethal. In a single morning, more than 4 inches poured down, overwhelming rivers, streams, and fragile drainage systems that were never designed for such a sudden assault. By mid-morning, entire neighborhoods lay submerged beneath swirling brown water. Homes that once rested safely on dry soil were waist-deep in torrents. Cars were carried away like toy boats, while trees and power poles crashed to the ground. Rescuers reported that in some places the current was racing at nearly 20 feet per second, so fast that once the flood reached a house, families had mere minutes to escape. Some clung to rooftops, waving torn shirts and blankets as distress signals, while others huddled upstairs, whispering prayers that their walls would hold. The force of water was staggering. Officials said the Klong Tron spillway was spewing over 5,100 cubic feet per second, enough to rip apart bridges in moments. And it did. Critical crossings were swept away, severing entire villages from the outside world. For Uttaradit's residents, it all felt instantaneous. A peaceful morning, collapsing into chaos, where survival was the only thing that mattered. As the floodwaters surged through Uttaradit, every second became a battle for survival. In Nampat district, 9 villagers, including children and elderly grandparents, scrambled onto the rooftops of their homes. With water climbing past the first floor, there was nowhere else to run. Drone footage released by local rescue groups captured haunting images. Small figures clustered together on fragile rooftops, waving desperately as the torrent raged beneath them. One father of 3 recalled how the flood smashed through his front door with explosive force, sweeping away furniture in seconds. "We barely had time to grab the children and climb up," he said, his voice still shaking. In another chilling case, a 65-year-old grandmother was trapped on the second floor as neighbors stood helpless, fearing rescue might not come in time. The most heartbreaking scene unfolded in Ban Rong Luek village. A 92-year-old woman and her 74-year-old husband were stranded inside, too weak to escape as the waters rose around them. Local rescue teams waded chest-deep through mud and debris, battling currents and broken communication lines to reach them. Their struggle became a symbol of human resilience, of refusing to leave the vulnerable behind. For families across Uttaradit, safety vanished in minutes. Bedrooms turned to pools, kitchens into rivers, and familiar streets into death traps. Ordinary life dissolved into a desperate fight for survival. When dawn finally broke, after the heaviest rains, the full scale of devastation was laid bare. Highways had vanished beneath torrents, leaving yawning craters where pavement once stood. In Uttaradit's Nam Pat district, at least 2 key bridges were torn apart and swept downstream, cutting rural villages off completely. For residents, there was no way out. For rescuers, no way in. Emergency teams scrambled to improvise, deploying boats, bulldozers, and excavators to haul food and medicine across what had become furious rivers. Power lines sagged and snapped beneath mounds of drifting debris, plunging entire neighborhoods into blackout. In some places, utility poles toppled into floodwaters, hissing and sparking before going silent. Phone signals collapsed as well, leaving countless families in anguish, unable to reach loved ones. Rescuers struggled to coordinate efforts as communities sank into isolation. Even public buildings, long seen as safe havens, were overwhelmed. Schools sat under several feet of water, classrooms churned into swamps of mud and broken desks. Shops and small businesses lining Nam Pat's main streets were gutted, their stock swept away in minutes. Local hospitals, already under strain, treated dozens of injuries, broken bones from collapsing structures, deep wounds and infections from polluted water. The destruction went deeper than shattered infrastructure. Roads, schools, and bridges are the arteries of rural life. Without them, children lose classrooms, farmers lose markets, and families are cut off from survival itself. What was once a tightly connected region had become scattered islands, divided by a relentless wall of water.
อยู่กับเขตดิ้งดองนะครับผมรัชดาดิ้งดองนะครับเขาน้อยนะครับตอน
As floodwaters consumed more of Uttaradit, rescue efforts accelerated into a desperate battle against the clock. Thailand's Department of Disaster Prevention and Mitigation rushed boats, trucks, and helicopters into the most devastated zones. Military units rolled in with amphibious vehicles, cutting through submerged streets, while volunteers linked arms with local officials to ferry stranded families to safety. With bridges gone and roads torn apart, every mission became a gamble, every second a race. In Nam Pat district, rescuers concentrated on rooftop evacuations. Families waved scraps of fabric and flashed lights into the night as torrents surged through their homes. The elderly, unable to climb, were lifted in rescuers' arms. One unforgettable scene unfolded when a 92-year-old grandmother and her 74-year-old husband were finally pulled from their flooded home after hours of entrapment. Laid on stretchers and carried away on inflatable rafts, their survival drew cheers of relief from neighbors. In makeshift shelters, the Red Cross and provincial authorities distributed food, bottled water, and blankets. Children huddled on mats, their parents whispering comfort despite their own fear. Health workers warned families against drinking the foul floodwater and handed out masks to stem disease. Still, the scale of disaster dwarfed the resources at hand. Calls for help poured in from remote villages unreachable by road. Rescue leaders called it a logistical nightmare. Too few people, too little equipment, failing communication, and unyielding weather. Each mission meant dodging collapsing buildings, hidden currents, even landslides. For those on the ground, the goal was more than saving lives. It was buying time before the next storm struck. As the floodwaters rose with terrifying speed, families across Uttaradit faced impossible choices. In Nampat district, 9 villagers, including children and the elderly, scrambled onto rooftops, waving frantically as the torrent consumed their homes floor by floor. The haunting photos captured by rescue teams have become the defining images of a humanitarian disaster in motion. One heart-wrenching scene showed a 65-year-old grandmother trapped on the second floor, her trembling voice barely audible over the roar of rushing water as she pleaded with relatives for help. In Ban Rong Luek, a 92-year-old woman and her 74-year-old husband were left stranded inside their flooded house. With bridges washed away and roads destroyed, their survival depended entirely on whether rescuers could reach them before it was too late. In Ban Na Klam, whole neighborhoods could do nothing but wait. Flood swallowed farms, schools, and streets, leaving families huddled together on rooftops with dwindling food and water. Children cried in fear, while parents tried to soothe them, praying their homes would not be torn apart by the current. Yet amid fear and exhaustion, acts of courage lit the darkness. Neighbors lifted one another to safety. Volunteers braved the currents to deliver ropes and life jackets. And as night fell, flashlights flickered across the waters, signals of survival and of hope waiting for rescue in the storm.
หัวหน้าน้ำท่วมถนนขาดหมดแล้ว
Tonight's catastrophic floods in Uttaradit, Thailand, stand as a stark reminder of nature's unrelenting power. Families stranded on rooftops, villages cut off from the world, bridges and roads collapsing. In hours, it shows how fast disaster can strike when the weather turns violent. As rescue crews fight against time, the people of northern Thailand are left in a state of fear loss and unbearable uncertainty. If this story has opened your eyes to the growing dangers of extreme weather worldwide, take a moment to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe so you never miss critical updates on breaking disasters across the globe. And now we want to hear from you. Do you believe governments and communities are truly prepared for the rising threat of climate-driven disasters? Or are we still underestimating nature's fury? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice matters, and together it becomes part of this global conversation.